And my story for tonight is going to be talking about what happens when your whole phase is activated at the same time as a depressive episode. So I'm in the middle of an aisle in Pick n Pay. To be honest, it was Pick n Pay liquor. They had a sale on Smirnoff 1818, and I thought, it's 10 a.m., it's a Tuesday, like, let me do something about it. I'm in the middle of an aisle trying to pick out a flavor that I want to get drunk off of, and somebody taps me on the shoulder and asks me to pass them a bottle. So I pass them the bottle, I turn over, and he compliments me on my hair. And I'm just like, oh, dope, you're cute. He later introduces himself, and for the purposes of the story, I will call him Cucumber. So we go back and forth. We go back and forth, complimenting each other from hair to shoes to hands, until he eventually steps back and says, your lips, eh? You look like a really great kisser. I didn't see him for another 2 weeks until he added me on Facebook, and it was school holidays, I had nothing to do, so I was just like, okay, fine, you're cute, let me add you on Facebook. We talked for a few hours later he asked for my number, we had a 4-hour phone call. Wow. But the whole time I keep seeing red flags, right? He tells me about his super successful catering company, and at one point he tells me how his ex-girlfriend is now pregnant with his best friend's child. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, babes, why are you telling me all this information? I really don't need this. And I'm seeing all these red flags, but I'm just like, oh, it's vague and it's cute, I have nothing else to do. So we keep chatting. I see him a week later when I was back at the university currently known as Rhodes, and we go out on a date. It was maybe one of the worst dates I've ever been on. I spent most of it calling him out on his fucky politics, or directing him to a piece of literature that would decolonize the way he thought of gender or sexuality, and it was really annoying, and I knew I had no reason to be there, but he was so damn attractive. We went out on the second date, which pretty much went the same way as the first date. I was calling him out, I was being annoyed, I was getting the most expensive meal because he was paying for it, and the whole time I thought, you are literally the most boring person I've ever met, but you are so damn attractive. When we met, it was around the same time when we had load shedding in Grahamstown, and it was super bad. For about 2-3 hours, we had no electricity. So for about 2-3 weeks, the only time I saw him was when the power was out. And to be honest, I'm a hoe, so I did not mind the fact that the only time I saw him was when the power lights were off. But also, at the same time that I met him, I was going through a very intense slump in my life. I had no idea what was going on. I was barely going to lectures, barely going out to eat, barely showering. I was getting emails that like my DP would get taken away. And for people who don't know what a DP is, but it's basically the thing that lets you write the exam. And my lecturers were saying, if you don't start coming to lectures, you want to lose it. And I was just like, oh, I don't care. I have no reason why I don't care. And the only reason I was leaving the house was because of this very attractive boy. So this one night, the power is off, we're lying in bed. We have just finished doing the things that make the sex to be done. It was very nice. But, okay, I'll be honest, it was decent, okay? Scale of 1 to 10, it was a 5 or a 6. But we're lying in bed, and he asked me, so how are you doing? But how are you really doing? So I go on to tell him about my family and about school, and I end up on this long monologue about how I was pretty sure I was depressed, but I couldn't tell because the counseling center was closed and the psychology clinic was too busy, but I'd gone into Google, which is like my favorite thing ever, even though I hate it. But I was just like, babes, I'm pretty sure I'm depressed, and like these are all the symptoms, and I haven't been to lectures, I haven't been showering, except for you. There was all these things happening, and he sits up, and he looks at me, and he says, I am so tired of these rich kids that are sad and sulking around and thinking that they are depressed and have anxiety. You just had to snap out of it. I have never gotten dressed that quickly in my life. I do not remember when that depressive episode ended or when I felt like I was finally coming back into myself. But I do remember thinking that when you are in a depressive episode or when you are depressed, self-love and self-care isn't a thing that you think about too often, right? Yeah. And I think we preach about this all the time, that if your mental health isn't on par, then take some time out and take care of yourself. But we always look at it as a prevention, as in go exercise in order to prevent getting depressed. And what I think we need to start talking about is how self-care and self-love is as important as medication. But at that point, when I was hoeing around with a boy that was silly, a boy that was boring, uninteresting, but was still cute, and we were having decent sex, I wasn't really taking care of myself, right? I was doing it because I was young and fun, and I had nothing else better to do. But what I really started thinking about was we don't really take care of ourselves when we're depressed. And what I also thought about was that the moment that your whole phase starts to compromise your life and your politics and your energies, that's when you know you need to stop. So the moment when you're hoeing around and it's fun and you're at Great Dane, it's lit, you're getting more drinks, but these people that you keep meeting, they keep messing with your politics or your energies or your vibes, that's when you know that you need to actually reconsider your life. And I don't know what happened with Cucumber. I saw him a few weeks ago outside of Great Dane. He tried to chat with me. I was obviously uninterested. But I think of all the things that have happened, what I realized with Cucumber was that we need to start taking care of ourselves even when we think we're having a great time. Especially when you're having a great time. Take a step back and think, is this what I really want to be doing? Am I doing it because I really want to, or because everything else in my life is fucking around? Because often when you're depressed, you don't give a shit. You don't care. You're just like, I'm about to lose my degree, or my job, or my DP, but I don't care because I'm sad, and I'm in bed, and I'm watching French foreign films on the internet. But that is that moment. That is that moment when you need to step back and be like, considering everything that is going on, am I okay? Am I still healthy? Are my politics still secure? Am I vibing with the people that I want to be actively contributing in my life? And so that is the story about me and Cucumber.